really nervous about doing this. Okay, and I used to be really good at doing that, you know, because I could handle these people because I was the boss. Okay, and everybody knew, you know, I had expectations for how they behaved and everything. Well, this is a little bit different because I'm not the boss. But anyway, I want to thank Denise and her family for having me out at the museum, and you guys for showing up. My name is Pamela Crouch, and I'm from New Kent, Virginia. I'm here to talk about my third book, which is my first published, Marshmallows. And I do have a cheat sheet because, like I said, it's been a while since I've been in front of people. A little bit about me. I was a little girl who was always making stuff up. Okay, as I got older, what used to be called fibs became imaginary playmates and scenarios that I played with my cousins and my sisters. I started writing in my early teens, and when I turned 18, I went to work. I spent 30 years in manufacturing production. I operated a machine. I retired early, picked up a few college courses, and began my writing career as a freelance content provider. After a few years of that, I wrote my first story, and for me it was kind of like playing with my imaginary playmates again, you know, except for they were leading the scenario instead of me. It was fun. So I fell in love with the process of writing books, and so far I've finished 5. Toughest Marshmallows is the first to be published. I write drama and suspense. My stories generally follow the social norms of the 60s and 70s, and my characters will typically be reckoning with the dark side of humanity or human nature. Okay. Toughest Marshmallows is a romantic suspense, but it's also a serial killer thriller. In short, it is a very sweet story with a very dark twist. Okay. Like I said, it's my third creation, first to be published. It's been described as Hallmark meets Alfred Hitchcock. One of my Amazon reviews said Criminal Minds meets the song Sweet Virginia Breeze. And anyway, the inspiration for this story came from a little Flash character in one of my other stories. In that story, he was trying to force this girl into his car. But when I finished that book, he stayed in my head, and I was real curious about him, why he was like he was. And like most of my characters and my stories, it comes from developing the main character. So in studying and putting together his personality and figuring out what made him tick, that's how Toughest Marshmallows became a story about a stalker and the innocence of his victim. This story does take place in a fictional town called Beckner, Virginia, which is just east of Richmond. And there is if you go down Route 60, you get to Good Hope Road. There's about 1 square inch in the middle, and that's where Beckman actually is. So anybody wants to go there. For now, this book is sold exclusively on Amazon. It is only in paperback, although it will be in the ebook version will be coming out soon. On Amazon, it's on sale for $15.99. And at this point, I'm going to read a little bit, but if you're interested in the book, I have copies that I'm selling for $10, but it's only in cash. Okay? So we will get started. Well, let me get my glasses and we'll get started.
If you haven't seen her gas station model, you have to see that. It's from the opening scene of the book. So
Yeah.
She actually recreated the opening scene.
I did. It's in the other room on the table. I was so nervous waiting for this book to come out, I had to do something. So I created the very first scene. I used the Matchbox set, gas station set. and I ordered Matchbox cars. And you'll notice it has a little luggage rack on top. I paid $10 for that thing and painted it. So that's how, and then I did, so anyway, it's out there. And that's what I do when I'm nervous. I have to create something, and. So anyway, this is Toughest Marshmallows, Chapter 1. He knew he had to have her the moment she drove the blue 71 Camaro into the South Carolina gas station. She didn't look his way, and he kept his distance. Not that he wanted to, but because of the girl in the back of the van. Staring through the windshield, he imagined his fingers locked in her thick blonde curls. He watched as she got out. Small and thin, she wore khaki shorts with a white button-up blouse that teasingly showed her B-cup bra. He liked the way she remained unaware, even though he followed her to the motel. Watching through the lobby window, he wondered if she'd ever checked into a room before. She seemed unsure, maybe even scared in the way she stood back from the desk, clutching her straw purse tightly with both hands. The clerk spoke, and as if playing some childish game, she smiled and took one giant step forward. She laid her purse on the counter, spreading its contents until she found her wallet. The girl in the back seat asked for food. He had forgotten his promise to feed her, the only reason he left the interstate. Hang tight, we'll eat in a minute, he assured while waiting until the blonde drove to the back of the motel. He gave her a couple of minutes, followed, passed slowly. Amazed, she never looked up as she carried a small cooler and a blue suitcase to room 32. He left the motel, making a hard right into the adjacent restaurant where he parked behind the building. The girl in the back promised to behave while he went inside. He wasn't too worried. The insulation was pretty much soundproof. She couldn't get out, and there was a wire partition between her and the cab. The place wasn't busy, and with the girl eating her hamburger and fries, he walked over to the motel, flashlight in hand. He peeked through the crack in the curtain of room 32 that revealed an open suitcase, but no shadows of movement. He could safely assume she was in the shower. Her packed car was locked with a map on the dashboard and an envelope addressed to Marsha Kane, with a Florida address confirmed by the Florida plates. He checked the straps holding the luggage rack and tightened one that was loose. Leaning over the windshield with a flashlight, he studied the map and the yellow highlighted line that stopped with a dot. Also written in yellow highlighter was the address 7842 Washington Highway, Beckman, Virginia. He peeked through her curtain once more, imagining suds running down her body as she stood in her hot, steamy shower. He thought about knocking, just to see what she looked like when wet. But the girl in the van would be done eating by now. Begrudgingly, he returned to the van, ready to rid himself of the girl. Chapter 2. Marsha left the Florida Palms, having sold, donated, or trashed anything she couldn't stuff into her 71 Camaro or the luggage rack on top. 27 and widowed, the 2-day drive allowed an abundance of empty time to mourn her life and her husband of 6 years. Somewhere through the Carolina pines, Marsha pondered her future. She wondered about the grandparents she'd never known and the house with the 42 acres she inherited. And I'm going to stop there. So that leaves Marsha right now thinks time is on her side. He knows it isn't. A young widow, she discovers her heritage and gains a renewed sense of purpose while restoring her estranged grandparents' house. But he is watching. And she escape her dark fate, or will hers be the next body found? Anybody have any questions?
I have one.
What?
How did you invent your imaginary town? And can you visualize it and see where everything is?
Yeah, I know exactly where everything is. Like I said, mine started with that one square in the middle of Route 60. So from there, I think, move a couple of rivers. But yeah, that's kind of where it was. And I think I came up with it with that particular place because the church that's right there on the corner is like my great-great-great-grandparents donated the stained stained glass window for that church, and I don't know why, but I decided to put it back right there in front of that church. It just made, and I'm describing that church in the book, and, when we get a little further too.
And do you always use the same town, or do you invent new towns?
No, I have to
for every
invent,
book?
yeah, I invent something new for every town, or for every book.
It's like if people who serialize and use the same town, you always say, I've never heard of that town. Everybody who goes there, how many people do they have left?
Yeah, I think inventing towns is fine. And, and houses, I like inventing houses too, in my books. So.
Do you research to jog your memory of what it was like in 1970 to go in a drugstore and find a soda fountain?
A lot of it, as I'm writing, I remember.
Okay, it just comes
Okay,
back.
but a lot of it, there is a whole lot of research involved. Like with this book, there's a lot of remodeling going on because she's inherited this house that's falling apart. So, and of course, I'm not a construction person, so there's a lot of things that I don't know that I had to research, in order to make the story realistic. And some things I'll stretch a little bit, but then there are other things like the terminology and words, begrudgingly, reckon. There are words that were used in the 70s that are really no longer used. And so I try to use a lot of that, and because my books are not about the 70s, they're just 70s. I think it's possible to write a book without as this character will introduce itself, I have to really get to know them personally, because I need to know what their quirks are, what their good are, and it's almost like meeting a person. And from there, their tone and their voice and their words will come from that, their reaction comes from the personality that I create. But as we're going through, the other characters that come in are the personality types that I need to make the story move. And I use a lot of, with my dialogue, I use a lot of the way they would actually speak rather than, the correct spelling or whatever. Consider publishing. Stan reads all of my stuff. He literally taught me how to write, the mechanics of writing. I've always had good stories. I won't lie about that. I don't mind, blowing my horn. But the mechanics of writing are difficult. And I spent 30 years in a factory. We did not use writing. We used numbers. We used our hands, and I could probably fix your carburetor in a car. But, as far as the mechanics of how and where to use, the period and the comma, and that was difficult. And Sam literally taught me how to do that. He suffered through the first draft of Last Ride. He suffered through Downer Street. He went through this one. He read the other one. And,
I like reading your books.
But he literally, I would not be standing here if it wasn't for him. And then for the support of Denise and Janet Fass at Chesapeake Style magazine, I would not have gotten this far. So thank you. I really appreciate it. Well, I'm excited too. I'm not gonna lie. And my son did the cover, by the way. He does this sort of thing. He wanted to know what he wants the cover to look like. And I told him I want to do Marshmallows. So he went out and took a picture of Marshmallow. And then his partner took me on a photo shoot. Okay, because I can understand pictures. There is not a picture taken of me that I like or I would want to blast around the world. So they went out and took me on this photo shoot downtown in Richmond. I had so much fun. And she actually came up with this picture, which is, how do you not look like that? So, but I love it, you know? So yeah, that's kind of how, you know, me getting published was a family thing. It wouldn't happen without Stan, it wouldn't happen without my older sister threatening to kill me if it didn't. And so, you know, yeah, that's how I got here.
Thank you.
So,
What was your publication date?